All right, this time, let's move now to the create movie. So let's minimize this one. Then from here, head over to the services. Now for our next process, let's create that process and call that create movie. Now from here, let's call the async and the payload. For our payload, it could be anything. Okay, so we have some few things from here. So by typing cons movie, and since we're passing this value, so by default, let's omit or exempt one of the fields, which is the ID. Now, from here, I'm going to create an interface just for this one. Now, for that interface, okay, so since we're using TypeScript, okay, so since we're using TypeScript, let's create that interface within our iMovie. Now, let's head over to our iMovie. And from here, I'm going to create a new interface. So I'm just going to call this as iUpdate B. Okay. So the fields required here are ID, which is a number. Next one is the title, a string, and description, same as string. Okay, so that's all we need for the iMovie. Now let's copy this one. Then from here, let's import that. Okay, so let's import that. There you go. So with this iMovie, let's use this interface in here. And then let's specify the omit field. So I'm going to exclude the ID. Okay. And then, okay. So from here, let's specify now the values needed for our entry. So first, we need the title. This should be payload.title. So let's check this first. Find name ID. Oh, so it's not reading. Okay. So this should be a string. There you go. Okay. So let's continue. So from here, let's also add the description. Let's call the payload description. All right. So that's all we need for our movie. Now next, let's submit this one to our backend by typing return access public post, and then we need to specify the post condition. Now, if you recall, we're setting to this one, which is the create movie. So this is what we set in our Laravel. And then let's bring down our movie. Okay, so take note on this one. Okay, now that we have this one, let's proceed now on the actions. So let's work on that. Okay, so now that we are in our actions, okay, so simply we can copy this one here. Okay, and then we can paste that in here. Now the only difference is we're going to replace these two, create movie. Okay, so that's what we need. And then we can simply copy this as well and until this section here. Okay, so from here, let's rename this as create movie. Now for our async, okay, I'm going to replace this to movie. Okay, since we're passing a value, so safe to say we can use this movie. All right, so that's what we need. And then let's create a try and catch. Now there are a few things that we want from here. So, but first I want to paste this catch. Okay, so this is what we need for our catch. So for the error checking, we're going to pass that to a message session here or the variable here, and then this we're going to pass down to our reject with value. Okay, so that's what we need for our catch. Now for our try, simply the basic. So what we're going to need in our try is first, I'm going to assign that to a variable named response. And then let's call the await. And then from here, let's bring down the services. Okay. So right now, we're going to import our service. So by typing import movie service. Now let's get that from services. Oh, okay. So we have already here. So no need to type this one. So we simply copy this movie service and then from here, let's call that. And then let's call the function create. Okay. So from here, let's pass now the value from our movie. Okay. So from here. So this is where we pass down our value. And then, so let's call also or assign a data by calling the response dot data. Okay. So we're passing the value from the backend. And then we can simply copy this one here and use that in this section. All right, so that's what we need from here. Okay, so let's expand this more so that you can see everything from our code. Okay, so feel free to pause from this video. Okay, so basically that's all we need for our actions. Now from our actions, let's import this now to our reducer. So let's work on that. right? So from here, let's import our actions by calling this create movies. Okay, good. Now that we have our actions, the next thing we need to do now is to import that to our builder. Now take note, we need to provide at least these three example here. So we can copy everything from the header. So instead of that, let's use create movies. All right. So the rest we can copy as well. Okay. So that's for fulfilled. And the last one, we need to copy this reject. All right. So there you go. So that's all we need for our builder. So let's work one by one. Okay. First, we'll be working on the loading or the pending. Now for the pending, there are these things are similar. So we can copy this one. Okay. So that's what we need for our pending. Now for our fulfill. Okay. So for our fulfill, let's add the following. By typing the state that is loading. We're going to set this to false. Next, let's call also the is success. Let's set that to true. Next, let's pass on also the status message. And let's call the actions that payload that status. And then let's call this state that movie or movies. So we're going to push the value. Okay. And then let's call the actions that payload that data. Okay, so that's all we need for our create movies fulfill. And then let's work with the rejected. So first, we're going to set the movies to null. And then we're going to pass also the status message to empty. Next, let's pass also the error message by passing the actions that payload. Okay, so only the payload. And then let's call the state that is loading to false. Another thing is we're going to pass also the is error to true. And then the last one is the state that is success equals to false. All right. So feel free to post this video. So right now we only need only these three things. Okay. So let me check one by one. Loading, success, status, actions. So that's it for our reducer. So now that we completed our reducer, we can work now on our forms. So let's proceed to that. Okay, so from here, let's head over to our components. And then from our components, we're going to create a new folder for this one. And I'm going to name this as add movie. Okay, in our add movie, we have two files that I want to create. First one is the I add movie. Okay, so that's the first one. And the next one is the index.typescript or the TSX. All right. Okay, so for our okay, let's work first with our iMovie. So from here, let's create an interface by typing export interface, and we're going to use the I at movie. And from here, let's define the following. Okay, so just these three things from here. There you go. Okay, so next, okay, now after we define our mat movie for the interface, let's import that. Right, so that's what we need. Also, we're going to import the things from the React. So let's begin by typing the import fc. Okay, next, let's copy these properties. Okay, so these properties from the pure model. Okay, okay, now that we import our pure model, so safe to say, we need to install this pure model. So let's copy this one. Then from here, let's open that in terminal. And then let's type npm install react pure model. So that's all we need. So we can close this one now. Okay, so once done, let's begin constructing our function by calling const movie. Now for this one here, we'll be needed a props. So let's declare first our props by typing type props. Now the only things that we need here is this function, the save movie, and let's call the form data. So from here, let's pass now this reference. All right, so that's what we need. So now let's call now this props. And then we'll assign that function to our value. All right, so that's what we need. And then let's export that. Okay, good. So basically, what we're doing now is we're just uh, we're just adding the previous example. So if you recall, we already did this one. So what we're doing here now is to remake that process, but the difference is we're going to apply the Redux. Okay, so from here, I'll be using or declaring this model and the set model. So for this example, we'll be using the use state, and we're going to set that to false. For now, let's add that to from our React. Right. So that's what we need. And then let's initialize this value. So we're going to declare the initial value. So by typing initial values, then let's pass this I at OP. And then let's bring down or set the temporary value. So for the title, going to set to empty. Same goes with the description. All right. Next, let's return that. And then we're going to assign like this. Okay, so let's do this one by one. So the first one is we're going to assign a tip. Okay, so from here, we're going to assign a button on click. So from here, let's set the modal to true. Okay, so we're going to add a label for this one. I'm going to name this as add movie. So that's all for our add movie button. So now let's call one by one our components. So the first one is I'm going to call the pure modal. Okay, for our pure modal, I'm going to declare the header and going to name this as add movie. Now for the other attributes here, I'm going to call the is open and I'm going to wrap that to our model. Then with the width, I'm going to set that to 480 pixel. All right. So let's save that. Okay, so it's missing a children. Okay, good. So inside with our model, let's begin calling now our formic. Now for our formic, let's import that. And then let's call from formic. Now for now, we don't have the formic yet. So we need to install this one. Okay. So let's open our terminal by selecting this app. So let's type npm install formic. All right. So there you go. We can remove this now. Now that we have our formic, let's add the attributes for this one. So first, we want to call the formic. Also, we need the form and the field. All right, so that's all we need for our formic. So let's head back now to our section. Okay, so for our formic, we need to set the following. So first, we need to enable initialize. Let's set that to true. Next, let's initial the values. So now, we already have the initial values. If you recall, we set that already in here. By next, let's go on submit. And we're going to pass only these two parameters, the values and the actions. So what are the things needed from this one? So we're going to call the function movie and we're going to pass the values. Okay, so that's the first one. And next, we're going to set the model to false. So which means we're causing the form. And the actions, we're going to set submitting to false. Okay, so that's all we need for our formic. So now, let's construct now our form. So to call the form, okay. So take note, it should be inside or in between this formic. Now for a form, we have a few things here. So let's call the label HTML form. So let's set that to title. Okay. So next, let's call now our field and let's set the ID to title and the name as well to title. And the placeholder, enter title. And let's close this one. All right. So that's basically what we need for our field. So next, let's copy this one. Okay. So going to fix this. Okay. So for our next one is going to set the description. This is only a basic setup for me. So there's a bunch of here that you can still explore and add more, like the validation. So maybe on the future demo, I'm going to discuss more about for me. All right, so that's all we need for our field. So the next one is we're going to add also a to button. So for to button, going to okay, so the first one, going to add a function or a method, and I'm going to set the modal to false. Okay, so this button, this most likely be cancel. So let's build the cancel. Okay, so that's the first one. Now the next one is going to create a button and the type equals to submit. So this is a submit button. All right. So basically, that's what we need for our form. So now that we have our add form, we can now customize this one by import that to our index page. So feel free to post this video and copy everything from here. Uh, Also, okay, so I guess everything is okay now. So let's work on the next step. Okay, so on our next step, but before that, I want to customize the display of our table. So to do that, let's head over to our app.css. So we can, safe to say, we can remove everything from here. Now, if you recall from our earlier example, I already created the CSS for that. So I want to paste that in here. All right, so let's save that. All right, so there you go. So now, if we check our table, there you go. So that's what we need. So next to that, I want to add one more. So below to this section here, we're going to add the CSS for the form. Okay, so this only these three. All right, so that's all we need for our CSS. So make sure this CSS or app.css is imported in our app.tsx. Okay, so that's basically what we need. Okay, so now that we have our CSS, so let's proceed now on the add movie. All right, so head over to our pages home index, and then from here, okay, next to movie item, let's import now the add movie. Okay, so what are the things need for our add movie? So the first thing we need to do now is let's create a function somewhere here. And for that function, let's call cons handle save movie. Now let's pass the form data. Now this form data is set to any. Then let's call the void. There you go. Okay. So this is the only functions needed for our handle save movie. So from here, let's add a try and catch. For our catch, I'm going to assign that to a variable. So safe to say, I'm going to pass that to a console log so that we can see the difference during running. Now, so next, okay. So from here, let's import now our create movies from features. Okay, so that's all what we need. So using this one, we can copy this one and add that to our function. Now, similar to what we did in here, let's copy this one. So first, we're going to pass the form data. But this should be small letter. There you go. All right. So that's all we need for our function. So with this save movie, we're going to pass that to our add movie. So let's add now the add movie. So let's replace this one here. And let's call the component add movie. And then let's pass that to the function called save movie. And if you recall, we're going to pass this as well. So this is the function that we're going to use within the operation. All right, so save that. So now that we have our add movie, okay, so there you go. So notice here, we already have the add movie. Okay, so before we customize this one, I'm going to test entry here. Let's say Sleeping Beauty. Okay, so this is a test entry. All right, so let's submit this one. There you go. So now I'm going to customize this cancel button. So head back here. So let's customize this one by adding style, margin left. Okay, so this is all already set from the earlier demo. So I just copy those reference. Okay, so same goes. I want to copy this one as well. All right. So that's all we need for our button. So if you check that in here, let's refresh that. Oh, so there's still more. So let's check. Okay, so we need to wrap this one. So I'm going to wrap this to a div. So from our div, let's set the style. Let's call the text align. Should be right. And the width, I'm going to set this to 100%. And the padding to 0. Let's save that. There you go. Right, so that works. So at this point here, our add movie is workable. So let's work now on the edit and delete. Okay, so let's proceed to that. Okay, so to work with the update movie, so let's head over again to our features and services. So from here, we can save to say we can copy this one. Okay, so from here, let's rename this to update movie. Now, so the only difference here is we're going to retain this one, but I'm going to create a variable here named ID, and I'm going to pass down the payload ID. Okay, next, instead of post, I'll be set that to put, and then I'm going to change this to update movie. Now, since we're passing that to our reference, so let's bring down our ID. And this section here should be a forward slash. Okay, so basically that's all we need for our update movie. So next, let's move now to the actions. So let's work on that. Okay, so from our actions, okay, we can copy everything from our create movie. Then let's rename that. Okay, so we have the update movie, and then save goes. I'm going to replace this section here to update. And then the only thing I want to change here is this one. Okay, so I think this is okay. So what we're going to change now is instead of create movie, I'm going to replace this with update movie. And the rest from here. Okay, so I think that's pretty much everything from here. So that's all we need. Only these few steps, the update movie here, and this prefix. So take note, prefix is very important as well. So make sure all the prefix are unique. Create movie, get all movie. Okay, so that's all we need for our actions. So next, let's import now to our reducer. So let's work on that. Okay, so from our reducer, so same goes, we can copy this three section. Oh, but first, we need to import the actions. This one. And then, we can copy this one. And let's replace that with the actions that we import earlier. Right? So let's clear everything from here. Okay, so there you go. So this is only things that we need for our reducer. So now let's modify each builder here. So let's work on that. From here, let's add the state. First one, that's add is loading. I'm going to set that to true. And then let's add the is success. And we're going to set this to false. Okay, so here's the next one. Now under fulfilled, we're going to set the state that is loading. We're going to set to false. And then the is success, I'm going to set that to true. Now for the message, I'm going to set the state, the status, message, and let's bring down the actions, the payload, that status. So from here, let's do a little coding. So by typing cons index equals to state, a state dot movies dot. Okay, so maybe I should copy the entire line. All right. Okay. So we have some few things here. So first, we need to find the index from our actions payload. So but first, we have an error in this section. Okay. So since this is an unknown value, we're going to set the types for any. Okay, so here. Okay, good. So everything is okay. So what it does is we're passing an ID to our update movie, and then we're going to perform the find index. So it will check from which index belong for this particular ID. Now next. So from here, we're going to perform the update. So I'm going to paste this code line. So basically, okay, but before this one, we're going to assign a object like this one. So once we found this index from our movies object from here, it will carry over to our movies set of array. So from what position, it will get only that particular rows. So and then, so once found, okay, so once found, it will update all the values from the payload. Okay, so from here, okay, so since we're returning a value, okay, what it does is when sending the value from the backend and returns. So actions here contains not only this small portion, but the entire value from the update. So what it does is first here we check the index or the position from our current object, which is the movies. And then the object here serves as the value for that particular rows. Okay, so since we already added the index here, so which means we're only getting only that single value. So once found, this object will now map. So we're going to map all those value based on keys. Okay, so all from the actions value and versus the object value. So we were going to map that. So that's how we update our movies. Okay, so feel free to pause and copy all each line here. So next, if there's something or something going on the back end or did not success, so on your rejected, we're going to set the following. The first is the movies, we're going to set to null, and the state for status message, we're going to set to empty. Next, I'm going to set that error message equals to actions that payload. And then I'm going to set the state does is loading. Let's set that to false. And then I want to set the state that is error equals to true. And then I want to set the state that is success equals to false. Okay, so basically that's all we need for our rejected. Okay, so feel free to post this line. So now that we have our reducer, we can work now on the components. So let's work on that. Right, so let's head over to our component. So from here, let's create a new folder. And we're going to name this as edit movie. Now there are a few things from here. First one is the index.tsx. Similar to this one, I'm going to name this as I edit movie. Okay, so this should be .ts. Okay, so basically, they are almost the same. We can copy this interface and set it in our I edit. But we need to replace this I edit movie. Now also from the add movie, we can copy all from here and paste it in here. Now, so there are a few things we need to modify. So this one should be edit. So let's copy the main project. This one should also be edit movie. Okay, so all the iMovie here should be replaced. We can replace that with I edit movie. Okay, so let's save that. All right, so those are the things that we need from our edit movie. Okay, next. So since we're doing some edit, similar to what we did from previous example, let's modify some of these settings here. So the first one is I'm going to update this one to update movie. Okay, this should be form data. Okay, so that's the first one. The next one is I'm going to edit movie. So this time I just pass on this interface in this section. All right, so that's one of these things here. So let's apply now to our props. First is the update. So the next one is the edit. Okay, so basically these are the two needed from this section. So now that we have this one, let's update our section here. So first, this one should be replaced as edit movie for the header. Now, similar here, I'm going to replace these to edit. Okay, so for the button, we have the edit. And for the header, we simply update to edit movie. Now, head over to this section to the submit. So from here, we'll replace this one to update movie. Then save. So everything from that section till here are okay. So I think there's nothing here to change. Okay, so let's review. So first we need the okay. So from our submit, the only thing was added or changed was this update movie. And then from our button and the header, we change this text header and this caption here. All right. So next, okay. So next we modify this value from this parameter. Now since this is an edit, we're going to pass this value. So this one carries the value from the main table. So let's replace the value from here. The first one is the ID. And then let's replace this to title. This one to description. Okay, so basically that's all we need from initialize values. Now let's move forward above. Okay, so this one already okay, and this one already been okay. So what else? We have the update and the reference. All right. So basically, that's all we need from edit movie. So now, let's import this edit movie to our table. So let's work on that. So from here, let's head over to the movie items. All right. So from movie items, let's import the edit movie by typing import edit movie. Right. Okay, next. So from here, let's update the following. First, we need to call the update function, which is the update movie. And then let's call the form data, want to set to any, and as point. Right? So let's copy this one. And then let's add that to our parameters. Okay, so the first column here, let's add now the components by adding edit movie. Okay, so from here, let's add the following. First is the edit movie. Let's bring down this movie. Next, let's add now the update movie. And let's add now the update movie. Okay, good. So that's all we need from our edit movie. So now, let's modify now the front end. So head over to our index.tsx. So from our movie in this section, so let's add now that update parameters. Okay, so for now, we don't have yet the function. So let's create that, but we're going to name that as handle update movie. Okay, so let's create that function. Once, okay, simply we can copy everything from here. Right. Okay, so from here, let's apply now the updates. So, but first, we need to add the updates from our movies. There you go. So let's copy this one and replace this section here. There you go. Okay. So that's basically what we need. Now let's test now our table. There you go. So let's replace that by test title and test description. So let's submit that. Okay, good. It's working. So let's try one more. There you go. All right. So basically, that's all for our edit update. And on the last step, let's work now on the delete. So let's work on that. All right. So now we're working now on the delete. So let's head back to our features. from the services. So from here, let's create another function. I'm going to name this as delete movie. Okay, so we can simply copy this section here. Okay, so the only difference is I'm going to submit an ID. So this time, I'm going to submit that ID and with the data types of number. So from here, let's return statement. And then let's call now the delete. Okay, so similar to what we did in here, we can copy that. Now the only difference is let's replace this update to delete. All right, so that's all from services. So from here, let's move now to actions. So let's work on that. All right, so let's step over to this section. So safe to say, we can copy everything from updates. Okay, so we'll paste that. And from here, let's replace this to delete. Okay, same goes. Let's modify also this prefix to delete. Now, instead of movie, let's pass the ID. Next, so instead of update, let's remove that. Let's replace with delete movie. Okay, so next is now type number. So let's assign this to number. Okay, so there's an error here. So what we're going to do now is according here, ID number. Okay. So let's remove this one here and let's replace this thing here to number. There you go. So this is what we're going to update. So that's it. So basically, that's all for delete movie. So from here, let's work now with reducer. Okay, so for our reducers, let's copy this tree. And then let's clear everything from this section. All right, so we have this now. Pending, fulfilled, and rejected. Now, let's import the delete movies. Then let's replace everything from this tree builder. Okay, so let's work now. So from here, we can copy this section for pending. Okay, so for delete movies, we're going to, rather the fulfilled. So let's set one by one. First is this is loading, and we're going to set that to false. State to is success equals to true. Now, next, let's pass the state that status message equals to state that, or rather actions that payload that status. Okay. Now, there's one thing I want to update here. So I'm going to paste this code line. All right. Okay. So feel free to post this video. So similar goes as what we did to our update. In delete, we're going to search also that find, or by finding its index from the ID. Okay, so that's what we need for our delete. Now, so once found, let's remove that from our groups of movies. As you remember, this is the object that we're using for the entire process. So once found, we're going to delete that particular index within the movies object. Okay, so that's all for refill. So the last one, let's modify now the rejected. We type in state that is loading equals to false, state that is error equals true, state that is success equals to false, and state that status message to empty. And this time, let's pass this state that error message to actions that payload. Okay, so basically only this section here for rejected. All right, so that's all for movies. So now let's apply this now in our components. So let's work on that. So from here, let's head over to our movie item. And then let's add another function. And we're going to name this as delete movie. So for our requirements, we only need the ID. So this is a number. And then we set to void. Okay. So next, let's copy this function and apply to our parameters. Okay. Now, to apply this one, let's insert that in between this TD. And then let's assign that to a button. So this is on click. Okay. So from here, let's pass this function in here. And then what we need is we're going to pass the movie.id. All right. So that's all we need from our movie or the movie item. So next. So from here now, we're ready now to apply that in our front end. But before we move to our front end, let's add the caption first for this one. And we're going to name this as delete. Okay, so we're ready now on our front end. So let's move to index.tsx. Okay, so from here, step over to this movie item, and we're going to add now that parameters, which is the delete movie. And then let's create a handler. I'm going to name this as handler delete movie. Okay, but now we don't have this one. So let's copy this one and create next to this one here. So let's assign a cons handler delete movie. Next, let's copy this one here and paste that. Okay, so the only difference here now is these parameters. So from here, let's replace that to ID as number. This one here should be ID. Now let's call now our delete function. Okay, so that's our delete movies. And then let's replace this function here. Okay, so there you go. Now let's try this now. All right, so see here, we already have this delete. So by adding more data, now let's delete this row. There you go. So let's try deleting this title, test description. There you go. So that's it, guys. At this point here, we managed to complete the entire full stack using Laravel as our backend and with our Postgres as database and our front end as our React with TypeScript and Redux Toolkit. Now at this point here, we're ready to deploy now using our Docker. So stay tuned.